Hey, so I actually want to talk about inequality and African and especially First Nations groups that are, not necessarily represented in college and universities in Canada, United States, and around the world. I think that there is a lot that we can do here. And I don't think that this is like all new stuff, but I actually want to talk about it because I think it's super important. So, what I'm going to say is actually we need to encourage more folks from different groups to go into universities and colleges because the one thing that I do see is that there is a striking pattern in terms of who goes to universities and colleges and who doesn't, and I think we need to address it or at least talk about it. um, and as you're going. All right. So I want to talk about inequality in African, First Nations, or Indigenous groups in colleges and universities in Canada and the United States. I think this is something that we really need to address. It's a very important topic, but not necessarily for the moral aspect of it. And yes, there's a huge moral aspect to encouraging people from different walks of life to go into college and university because these are opportunities that are there. But from an economic point of view, we are really holding back our economic productivity as countries if we are not allowing people to get to their fullest potential. And we really need to consider that not as a moral argument. I think that that is probably perhaps the not, that there is a lot of morality here, but at the same time, we need to address that. This is a real economic issue, and we need to, our countries are suffering because people are not working to their potential across different demographic groups. And we really need to think about that in terms of if we want to become more prosperous, we want to be more rich as as countries, as regions, we really need to tap into these resources. It is crazy. Imagine, you have a piece of equipment, and this piece of equipment is, it's very expensive. It is very delicate, and say like an MRI machine at a hospital, right? So MRI machines very expensive. You can generally most hospitals can maybe afford one. You're gonna have to save up for a lot for them, and then you have it in the hospital and you're only utilizing 10% of it. And if you do that, it means that your hospital is probably going to go into bankruptcy if you do a lot of that across the different resources you want. So just like a sort of physical piece of equipment, people actually have to be utilized to their fullest potential in terms of getting to where they want to go. And if we're not utilizing that, and we have a lot of people that are idle, or not idle in the sense that they're sort of purposely kind of not doing anything, but we're not allowing people to run at their fullest potential. We're really, really holding back the economic regions that we actually have, or the countries that we belong to, in a very strong sense in terms of economic productivity. That's how we grow. That's how we grow. That's how we get better. Is we allow everybody to work at their fullest potential, and to allow them to prosper. Right. So that's one striking thing that I actually see is that even in, you know, even in college and universities, and you do see less underrepresented groups at various college and universities, and that's kind of a pity. However, that there is diversity. There's probably a heck of a lot more diversity at colleges and universities than in sort of the general public. But people tend to go to different knowledge areas within the colleges and universities because they feel comfortable with that. And that is something that we need to address in terms of why that's actually happening. So, if you don't know me, I am Professor Dave Massack. I'm Associate Professor of Innovation Strategy and Entrepreneurship, and I created this whole reciprocity project to give back as much as I possibly can. There's so many people that help me out that I want to pay the favor for to help you out. It's not that people, that's I think that's where a lot of people get wrong, is that we've got these sort of systematic barriers that sort of prevent people from doing things. We do have those; those are very real. That we do have those, but what the key thing that that really does hold us back as human beings is we need to feel comfortable. And we need to feel comfortable doing things that are kind of different, right? So if you have a group of people and that group of people doesn't feel comfortable going in a particular domain because of whatever, maybe that there's stigma, or maybe people have comments, or you get looks, or whatever, all those really subtle cues, very subtle cues, they really do make a difference, and they add up. If you get those day in and day out, you're going to be like, heck no, I'm not going to go into that particular thing. I'm not going to stick out like a sore thumb in that particular thing. And, that's part of the reason why we don't see enough females in science and in engineering, although it's changing. We're starting to see a lot more of that going on, but still, it's not as much as what you think you would, right? So what I'm getting at is, if we want an economic system that's humming along and that's prosperous, we're rich because of it, and that's how you actually build wealth, is you get people to work, and people are working at the things that they want to work at, and they are doing things that are cool and exciting. We have to remove sort of frictions that are in the society or within the different economic system to ensure that people can move around freely without those frictions, right? I know that this is totally, rosy-eyed perspective, but that's really what we should be thinking about, is allowing people to work at their fullest potential and allowing them to move around from place to place very easily whenever the economy changes. And so diversity in of itself is a foundation for growth, right? Diversity and inclusion, it is the foundation for how we actually grow and become prosperous as societies, as companies, as countries. We really need to emphasize this, because we need to have people that are coming and going and moving and trying out different things, and just being really cool and exciting, right? And loving the things that they want to do. And the more that we can encourage that to happen, the more economic prosperity we can have. So, what I want you to think about in this day-to-day, or, as you go and about to do things, is to think about ways how you can encourage people from underrepresented groups. So, I don't have a heck of a lot of power in what I actually do, but if I could do a couple of YouTube videos every once in a while, just say, hey, you know what, you should try to consider this, and I hope you do it. If you're from, if you've got African descent, if you are First Nations or Aboriginal, I don't think a lot of people in the United States call that group of people, Aboriginal folks, First Nations, but I know in Canada, that's what everybody says. So, if you're in or Indigenous groups, if you're labeled as some sort of group, whatever that is, right? That's basically it, right? Like, if you're labeled as a group, whether it's like your neurodiversity or whatever, and you've got this sort of label on you, then I would encourage you to try to do things that are really cool, and reach outside of the things that you want to do, right? Or reach out towards the things that you're trying to do, and really try to pursue those particular things. It's going to be a lot harder. Absolutely, it's going to be a lot harder for you to do those things. That's just kind of what you're part of, though, right? Like, everybody has something that they're part of, and it's just harder to do that. So, to give me an example, and I was teaching about this in class, and I think that this is really funny. Having a Cosmo, like a Cosmo with a drink at the bar, as a guy, would be considered like, taboo, right? Like, I'm not feminine or whatever, right? I'm a guy. I'm a guy's guy, that kind of thing. But what the hell? Like, how stupid is that, right? Like, it's a drink. Why would we put these sort of labels on these things of, like, like you can only do this because you only should have a beer because that's what guys do. You should only have a Cosmo if you're female, and that's because you're female. I mean, that's nonsense. Really, at the end of the day, it's really, you should just do it because it's something that you enjoy, that you really want to do. And if you can get to that moment where you have the courage to do that, it's going to take a tremendous amount of courage, and people are going to say, like, people are going to say stupid things. They are, because there is that stigma associated with it, and you just have to have that courage to be like, hey, I'm going to do that. And if you're seeing people that are being discouraged because of whatever group they're part of, really think about like how you can encourage them to do really cool things, and get them to get into particular, in particular for me, I want them to get into positions of power, right? Like I really want them to become a CEO or VPs or politicians or whatever, because that's how we really change things. Because it's not about the barriers right now, but it's about like, oh, this person sees that that person is doing that. And so if there's one person that could do it, that means that there's 1,000 other people that are watching it. And they're saying, hey, I could do that too. I can get to that moment too. So if I can encourage people to go and do really cool things, I'm going to do that. So, and because you're facing this stigma as well, whatever it is that you have, or whatever it is that you're part of, or whatever, you got some sort of stigma because of some silly thing in society that we have. You're gonna have to work twice as hard, and you're gonna have to be twice as better as everybody else. But if that's the case, why not do it? Because when you are 75 years old, you look back and you see that you've done this thing, all of a sudden you've opened up the door to like 1,000 people or 10,000 people, because they say, hey, that person did that. I had the courage to do it, or they had the courage to do it, so I'm going to try to do that thing as well. So I'm in massive favor of giving people opportunities and looking for ways to give opportunities to different groups, whatever that looks like, just to encourage people to get to the moment where they are doing some really cool things, because that's how we become economically prosperous. That's how we grow businesses. That's how we we really become a wealthy society. And in the world, whatever country that you're part of is allowing people to just do whatever the heck they want, to become economically prosperous and to get them to do those things. So if we can encourage people to take that courageous act, to be the first in their position, to be the first whatever it is, that's awesome. That is super cool. That means we're going a long ways. And for all of you that are the first in a particular area, man, have at it. Just do it. Like you're a cool person, and you should be mighty proud of the fact that you're doing that. Awesome. Good on you. All right. Take care and have a wonderful day. Give me one of these if you need it. All right. Take care. Bye.